Welcome back to On the Path. It's such a beautiful day today. I'm looking out, I see the water, I'm seeing the sun shine through and can see the breeze dancing, with the trees and with life. And I'm reminded of grief. I just listened to a Moving Through Grief talk and a Zoom talk with a host of beautiful quotes and how do we access, or what are our metaphors for grief? Like, when we think of grief, what do we think? Do we think heavy, dark, collapse? What are the metaphors for grief? And so that left me just thinking about grief and the many ways that we can have grief. The many ways in which grief embeds itself within us in different places, like hide and seek. It's probably mostly hide. How often do we truly seek out our grief? And I'm thinking about the grief I hold. And I mean the unknown grief that I hold, that shows itself in different moments, where you just wake up and you feel off, or the tears are just there behind your eyes and you can't really point to anything because nothing has happened, and yet you feel as if something is happening. I've been feeling that way today, as if something is happening, and so in those moments it's my practice to turn toward and not away. How aligned that on this day where I felt something happening, a sadness, the tears just behind my eyelids, is the same day that there was the previously scheduled Zoom talk on moving through grief. So many things are just connected, right? Much of life is connected, whether we see the connections or not. Whether we seek out the connections or not. That's the thing of invisibility. It doesn't mean it isn't there. It simply means we do not have the sight for the seeing. But it exists like air. And so I'm thinking about my grief and wondering of the losses. What losses have I experienced that in this moment would come from out of a hiding place and gently tap me? And I think it's just around the loss of illusion. That's deep. The loss of illusion. I had to, that came out of my mouth, and the loss of illusion. What do you mean? The loss of illusion. I'm thinking about that friendship I had to end. And how when I dive deeper into it, was much of it an illusion? Was I ever really being held, being seen? And in what other places might there exist illusions that once I see clearly, there's the grief. I have to think about childhood. the quiet yet raging grief of all that went missing. But that from the outside looking in, there was but a pretty picture of all of the needs being met. But from the inside out, where was the love, the emotional availability, the validation, the holding? And so in this moment, I'm being with the grief of illusion, the grief that comes when we see things clearly, because seeing things clearly often means that something is now so seen that we can't unsee it, and that might hurt. Are you experiencing grief? Is there something that you have had to see clearly and now there is angst, or there's pain, or there's sadness? And what are you doing with it? Today I've been walking with mine, holding it inside my thoughts in my heart and looking at it, wondering about it, not wanting to turn away, just wanting to hold it, because there is no fix for grief. There is a holding. There is no fix. There is only the holding. There is no separation. There is but the connection. And when we connect to grief, when we hold the grief, it has a way of just feeling warm and loving and tender and real and vulnerable. And we go from feeling tight and constricted to spacious and vast, and we can cry and laugh in the same moment. So I'm being with grief. And I'm thinking, may we all be lifted. May we all be lifted a bit higher, and may we not suffer long, but allow grief to love us through. Because to love is to grieve, to be connected is to be pained at some point. That is both the beauty and that delicate hurt. Of love, of connection, of allowing, of being receptive to, being open. So I'm being with grief today. And it's a beautiful, layered, sad something or another, experience, reality. But I love myself for holding it, for turning toward it and not away. I invite you to do that. Just enter in. Take it by the hand, take it in your embrace, hold it close. Look it in its eyes and give it love. Give your grief some love. Yeah. Tell me about your grief. What are you holding? What are you carrying? What are you moving through? Share with me. Yeah. I appreciate your ear once again. Thank you for listening to my sharing, for being with me, for being in conversation and connection with me always. I appreciate you. I do. I hope you come back. Spend more time with me. Let me know how you're doing. Until then. Until then.